Welcome back to The Rundown. This week saw several challenges to the First Amendment. A University of Missouri professor was fired for her role in pushing away reporters during protests at the school last November. A Philadelphia district court ruled that filming police is not covered by the First Amendment unless it is made clear that the recording is a protest of an officer's actions. And presidential candidate Donald Trump said he wants to loosen libel laws in order to sue the press for negative reports. To break down what this could mean for the future of the First Amendment, I'm joined by WTOP 10 political correspondents Sabina Longo and Lauren Toscano. Guys, what can we expect going forward looking at these cases? Can they actually make a change to the First Amendment?
Well, no, they can't. Actually, to start off with, there was a Supreme Court, First Court of Appeals case talking about filming police officers. Now, Simon Glick, he filmed a Boston police officer after the police officer made a public arrest, and the Court of Appeals First Circuit stated that actually violated his First and Fourth Amendment, and a citizen has the right to film police officers in a public place. So there's not much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, not much they can change regarding this, in that sense.
Yeah.
Regarding the filming of police on cameras too, there's been a lot in the media about that, whether it hinders their process or whether it promotes a better relationship between them and the people they're dealing with. What do you think about that situation?
Honestly, what comes to mind at first is Ferguson. What happened in Ferguson and all of the videos that emerged from that in not just Ferguson, but other parts of the United States. What came about because of that, now police are actually some are required to wear cameras on their vests. But if we can't film them and they're filming themselves, I'm just confused as to why this case is being brought up now. Mm-hmm. After all this was happening and they say, oh, it's been this way all along, you can't film a police officer. But what happened to the other thousands and thousands of videos that emerged? Mm-hmm. Why now is just my question. Honestly, to answer your question beforehand, I don't think this will come of anything. I don't think any changes will be made.
I agree to that. I don't think any changes will be made, especially because the First Amendment states you have the right to record, and that isn't just for the press, it's to any citizen in the United States. So.
Mm-hmm. And regarding the press, now Donald Trump wants to increase libel laws, certainly something we're not thrilled about, looking forward to. Is there anything he can do in that situation?
No. So in order for proving libel, you have to first prove that the statement is false. And from what I heard, he wanted to make it harder for newspapers to have all these for libel, and he wants to sue them. So usually newspapers, they fact check everything first. Mm-hmm. And if he's talking about these libel laws and how he wants to sue the newspapers, this is going to lead to public restraint, which is pre-publication censorship, and that is a violation of the First Amendment. That Congress actually stated that no law abridging freedom of speech or the press, so that violates the First Amendment. Then, if he decides he wants to do these libel laws, he's going to have to change the amendment of the Constitution, and there's a whole entire process for that. You have to first go through the House and Senate, and it needs 2/3 of the vote. And you need a majority, obviously. And then after it passes the House and Senate, you need 3/4 of the other several states in the United States to come to an agreement of it. And then once that happens, then the Constitution, the amendment can be changed. But according to Article 5 of the Constitution, any amendment made before 1808 cannot be changed. Mm-hmm. So the First Amendment cannot be changed because it was made in 1789. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of hoops he'd have to jump through to even come close to making any changes.
There's no chance.
Honestly, I have to disagree. As the President of the United States, you do have that executive power to overlook the Congress, the Senate, you know what I mean. But I think he would have to jump through a lot of hoops, of course, but being that if he were elected the President of the United States, he could. What I'm confused about is that if he were to loosen these libel laws, which, as you said, Sabina, is pretty hard to do, he would actually be making a case against himself. If you refer to his Twitter page, if you refer to a lot of things, although we're dipping into slander now, a lot of things, that he said, He actually not too long ago on Twitter tweeted out something defamatory against Ted Cruz. Now, if he were to loosen libel laws, he would be making a case against himself. And I know that he wanted to do it against the newspapers, but you can't have one or the other. He would basically be opening a whole can of worms, and it wouldn't look good as the president of the United States to have a libel case against you.
Let's take a step back from the legality of the issue, but as members of the media and aspiring members of the media, what is your reaction to hearing something like that? Because as a reporter, as a person who covers the news, you are tasked with keeping kind of in check what people are doing, letting the public know, and if you're showing the negative things someone is doing and not necessarily saying something negative about them, isn't that the whole purpose of it? Is that hindering the whole process of news gathering and information?
I honestly think as a reporter and a student reporter, we're already so restricted. There's so many things that we can't say, so many things that we can't do as reporters and students, that if you were to loosen the libel laws, you would just be restricting them even more. It would be more so, I feel like it wouldn't get a good reaction because we wouldn't be reporting at this point. We would just be saying all the good things people do and tiptoeing around all of the bad. So I just think it's very restricting, it's very limiting, and it would potentially cause more harm than good.
And going back to what she just said, is that's all about prior restraint right there. Is if you are fearing as the media to put something out and you're fearing that I might get sued, that's what prior restraint's all about, is to censor before you even publish something. So, and that violates the First Amendment. So I don't think he will go very far with this whole libel thing and loosening up the libel laws.
So in the end, these are really kind of political talking points that that are in the news because it's an inflammatory kind of thing to say, oh, we're going to change the First Amendment of the Constitution. Really nothing's probably going to come of this.
Yeah.
Just blowing
more
smoke.
talk
Exactly,
around
more
Trump.
talk.
Yeah. So.
Interesting. Well, thank you guys for coming and stopping
Thank
in to
you.
join us. You guys will be back later in the show, so we appreciate you guys pulling some weight for us tonight. Welcome back to the rundown. Less than 2 days remain until Super Tuesday, when 13 states will vote for their choice of the nominees in the 2016 election. Polls will close at 7 or 8 Tuesday night in most states, and results can be expected throughout the night and into Wednesday. This year's Super Tuesday features 7 southern states, which has put more pressure on the candidates to perform well in what is being called the SEC primary. Ted Cruz referred to his performance in those southern states as a firewall for his campaign. 9 of the 13 states are having both parties' primaries on Tuesday. Now we have Sabina and Lauren back in the studio with us. Guys, what can we expect looking ahead to Super Tuesday?
Well, I think that Marco Rubio is going to make a comeback. I really do. I was watching the debate on Thursday night, and he was just going at it, and I think he rose towards the top. I mean, he didn't beat Trump, but I think he was second place. So I think he's going to make a big comeback. That's what I'm thinking.
Honestly, I think although Marco Rubio he has gained momentum in the past couple of primaries or caucuses, but I honestly think that Trump is going to maintain his grasp over the Republican vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Marco Rubio seems to have gotten a little bump by Jeb Bush dropping out of the race. He kind of came out of his shell a little bit at the last debate, kind of really going after Trump. I believe I even saw a video of him reading mean tweets that Donald Trump has tweeted out at one of his rallies, which is just a funny thing. I think that's probably, would you say, to get younger people involved and looking for his campaign. And as our story earlier said, he polled very well with younger people, beating Trump in that demographic. Do you think that Marco Rubio will surge, or do you think that he's just kind of going to go along kind of tailing at Trump's heels?
You know, I think he's going to maybe follow behind Trump, but I think once we get closer towards November and towards the election, we're going to see a big change. I'm really feeling like Super Tuesday is going to set like where this election is going to go, but I just have a feeling, set the tone, but I just have a feeling that as we just keep progressing with more states and more primaries going on, I just think like it's going to be a very tough race between Trump and Rubio. I mean, I honestly forgot that Carson was even at the debate, unfortunately.
Well, it's interesting because Carson actually has fewer delegates that he's won than Jeb Bush, who's now bowed out of the race. I mean, how I wonder why he sees himself still as a viable candidate. Do you think that we're going to see people drop out of the race after Tuesday?
I think we definitely have to keep an eye on Kasich and Carson. After this, I was reading into it, a couple of articles from different sources, and the word is that whatever they do pull, a lot of people are going to start pressuring them into dropping out, maybe letting Rubio and Cruz get that edge on Trump that they need. They honestly do. Because at this point, I feel like Cruz and Rubio are a little bit, I hate to say this, but interchangeable. Ted Cruz really had gained momentum and then he plateaued. I feel like Marco Rubio this is his time. He's gaining his momentum. He's gaining steam.
But you see a plateau coming up.
Especially with Kasich and Carson still in the race.
Yes. As we go through this, if presumably Ben Carson and John Kasich will bow out of the race soon, they're not polling as well as the others. Do you foresee their votes going to Rubio, to Cruz, to Trump even? Is that something that you think, where do you think those will go?
I mean, I know a lot of people who supported like Rand Paul when he dropped out. Half of them went to Cruz and then half of them went to Rubio. And none of them, to my knowledge, went to Trump, or a very small amount. So I think they're going to just split up between Cruz and Rubio. And I think the older people who support like Kasich and Carson, they're going to go towards Cruz. And like you mentioned earlier, Marco Rubio has the younger vote, so I think he'll get more of the younger supporters.
Do you think that Marco Rubio's kind of resonance with a younger demographic, do you think that's just simply a factor, or a fact that he is also himself quite youthful, seems much younger than the other candidates, or is there something else at play there?
I definitely think it's because he is younger. It's actually weird that you mentioned that, because over at the Democratic side, a lot of the younger people are leaning towards Bernie. And it's not because of his age, obviously, but I feel like when it comes to the Republican side, I think they do side with him, especially because he's more active on social media. He's more active in the younger audience.
He's more tuned in to what they respond to. It's interesting that you mentioned the younger demographic too. For Bernie, in Nevada or South Carolina yesterday, Bernie actually polled on exit polls quite low with younger people in the South. Hillary beat him in the African American vote. She got quite a bit more of the percentage of that vote. She beat him in she beat him in everything essentially. But he polled better concerning educated and wealthier white adults. I thought that was an interesting kind of change. It's because it's not something that has kind of been the tone of his campaign. It's been all about young people, about minorities. Do you think that that is something to expect in the future for him, or kind of a falling off point, or do you think that it was just kind of a fluke that happened in South Carolina?
You know, I don't really know. I mean, I know that Hillary Clinton, she's got the women vote for the most part. She's got the older generation vote. She doesn't have a lot of young people supporting her, like Lauren mentioned that Bernie did. But I mean, I don't really know why that happened.
I thought it was very interesting. Lauren, do you have any input on that?
I'm thinking about it, and listening to everything that you guys have to say, I think it was honestly just a little bit of a fluke. Because leading up to that poll, it was always that the younger vote went to Bernie. So I honestly couldn't tell you what the cause of that was, but I think maybe it was just a fluke.
Yeah, and that's certainly an interesting thing to witness and to talk about a little bit. Well, guys, that's all the time we have for this discussion. Great stuff tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Rundown. Now, Sabina and Lauren are actually going to stick around with me for a little while we wrap up the show. During the break, we were actually talking about how this has kind of been an unpredictable race. What do you think is going to happen? Do we know anything?
I mean, yeah, like we were just talking about South Carolina and how Hillary she just beat Bernie and everything, and it just made me think, like, you don't really know how this race is going to go. You know, 6 months ago, Carson was leading. We thought Trump would be done by now, and
It's taking quite a few interesting turns.
Yeah.